Hi, Donna Lakes here with Conscious Living. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. The weather is starting to get really nice here in Michigan, so that's fun. The flowers are blooming and there's aroma from the flowers in the air. Now the trees are blossoming and everything's turning really green. So springtime is wonderful, 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 wonderful. So my topic for today is going to be codependency. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about codependency. So let's define codependency. It is characterized by excessive emotional and psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who has an illness or an addiction. But it can also just be like formed from having, toxic behaviors or parents who have personality disorders. So, kind of that is what happens. It's like you feel overly responsible for people. When you feel overly responsible for people, you become kind of codependent. And I think that my experience, I grew up being codependent, and that it was formed because I was grew up in a very toxic, violent environment. So it turns out I didn't really realize it. I mean, I know you never know what is normal when you're in it. You know what I mean? Because you just grew up that way and you don't really know. But it turns out it was very kind of a toxic environment in my family because, my dad was mentally ill, and in a kind of way, so was my mom. And my mom was very abusive. She was leaned on the spectrum of narcissism, I believe, and possibly could have had another personality disorder. But don't let people say that, people with personality disorders or narcissism can't grow, because they can. Because I think that, in the end, she did. It's just the growth is slower, harder, they resist it. And, so I wouldn't say that all people cannot grow out of that. Okay. But the most popular codependency is between an empath and a narcissist. So deep down under the layers, what I have seen from all the healing work that I've done all these years, and if anybody knows me, the healing work that I do is very psychological. And, also many healers are empaths, so they've been codependent. And one of the ways that it is most expressed is what I call fix and save syndrome. I definitely had fix and save syndrome because I was trying to make sure, I wanted to make sure that I was safe and that everybody was happy. And I think that's what happens to children that grow up in unhappy households and abusive households. Now, there's emotional abuse, there's mental abuse, there's physical abuse, and there's sexual abuse. And so, definitely the dynamics in my family, there was emotional, mental, and physical. And, some of the children learned it and expressed that upon the other children or other people as well. because that's learned behavior, right? So you either become an offender, you learn to become an offender, or you learn to kind of be a peacemaker, right? So I learned mostly to become the peacemaker. I wanted to make sure that everyone was happy and, kind of a people pleaser. But I had a little scrappiness in me from growing up. I was, the youngest of 6 children. And I kind of got picked on a lot and bullied a lot from the older children. And, they learned that from my mom because that's how she was with them and me, but more so with them. By the time I came along, she was a lot more mellow. And I was a sickly child. So I didn't get it as much from her. But then they would kind of get jealous and they, in turn, treated me poorly the way that they learned to from her. So our personalities are formed in our young formative years of 0 to 7, right? You've heard me say that before, I'm sure. But for newbies, I'm going to repeat that. So if you grow up walking on eggshells around all the toxicity, trying to make sure that you can feel safe and okay, you're very tuned into everybody's emotions. And that's what creates the superpower of an empath. Now, an empath is somebody who can feel other people's feelings and has a great understanding of other people's feelings, feels them, might even take them on as if they're their own, So when someone grows up like that, that is, just a setting you up to be a fix and saver, trying to make sure you love your parents. You want to make sure that your parents are happy. If your parent bullies you or your siblings bully you or someone in your family is bullying you, you so much seek their approval and you want to make them happy. You want to make them like you. It can set you up for being a perfectionist. So many things with the wounded inner child, but today we're going to talk about codependency. So what I noticed is that, and the underlying theme is that, and this is deep, is that the fixer saver wants to fix and save the others so that somebody can show up for them, so someone can save them. Because we're taught that we have to get our validation out of other people. We're not taught how to love ourselves. We're not taught how to fill ourselves up and overflow. We're kind of taught a little bit more like survival mode, right? And we're taught a little bit more like, trying to manipulate to get what you need. Manipulation can be such an ugly word. And I don't think that everyone learns to manipulate in that gross sense where it's on purpose. It's on purpose. I think a lot of people learn to manipulate on accident to get what they need, and definitely that's something that an empath might learn to do. And, on the spectrum of the narcissist, now everybody has a little bit of narcissistic behavior within them, I think, especially in America, there's a narcissistic society. So one thing that's been a challenge for me to learn is like, what is teamwork? What is dependency? And what is codependence? And so I think as society is growing up and maturing, and as we grow up and mature, we have to learn to take responsibility for our own energy, for ourselves. And we have to learn to give ourselves what we want from other people. We have to save ourselves. We can't rely on anybody else to save us and keep wishing and dreaming and keep trying to do things. It takes so much energy. It's so exhausting to try to fix someone else, save someone else, or manipulate someone else to get what you need. It's so much easier, guys, if you just give it to yourself. But we're just not taught that. It doesn't even dawn on us. It really doesn't dawn on us. And in those formative years, when the personality is forming, we don't know, children don't know or begin to separate themselves out until about 6, 7 years old, and know that there's a difference between them and somebody else, and especially their caregivers. They associate that everybody is connected to them. And they're right, because everybody is everybody, and we are just a mirror and reflection to each other, right? We all have these commonalities, and we are all one. We are all a part of the whole, but we are also each our own unique expression of the divine. You know what I'm saying? So we need to, if you found yourself being codependent on someone, with someone, meaning you either feel responsible for them or they feel responsible for you, and your ability to function in the world depends on that relationship, then you need to learn to separate yourself out. And what happens when you separate yourself out? When I said, I didn't realize how codependent I was with my family and my friends and everybody, and how exhausting is that? It's so exhausting. And so I started my journey of observing and undoing from this behavior, more around 2012, 11, 12, when the shift first began into with the new age. And when you begin to disconnect and create your own identity, and you stop people pleasing, and you start to act differently with people because you're undoing the toxic behavior of codependency, people get upset with you. They don't like it. And that's when you begin to lose people. And I feel like that's part of the ascension process. I feel like we're all a little codependent. And so the difference of codependency and teamwork or community is that you have your own identity. When you're codependent, you don't have your own identity, and your behavior relies on and depends on the behavior of whomever you're codependent with. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to you guys. So you are so connected with that person that you adjust your behavior, you adjust your needs or deny your needs for the person that you're codependent with. And you often put them before you. And we're kind of taught that. We're kind of taught, to sacrifice ourselves for other people. But then what do we have? We have this society of people sacrificing themselves for other people, and nobody's ever really happy. And because they're not giving themselves what they need, then they're trying to steal it from others. We're literally taught to steal energy from each other. And the codependent relationship is such a roller coaster, your energy roller coasters, because when you're getting what you need out of the person or people, your energy goes high because you're stealing energy from them. And when they're taking your energy and you're giving your energy away to them, because nobody can take your energy unless you give it away, you're getting exhausted, you're getting drained when they're taking from you. Instead of both parties filling themselves up, taking responsibility for themselves and their own energy. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to learn to have your own identity. Know who you are outside of this person or these people. And so at first, when you make this separation, people start to feel abandoned or rejected. Even you might, if someone's trying to disconnect from you. But don't take that personally, and maybe even explain it to people. Now, if they're a narcissistic personality, then most likely they're not going to take it too well, because they really have a hard time seeing beyond their wounding. And they'll go right into their wounding, which most likely would be abandonment, rejection. Or they will have a doubt within themselves. I was working with a client yesterday who has a narcissistic husband, and she wants to leave him. And she doubts that she can do it on her own in a way. And sometimes people can become scared of the unknown. But just like when you learn anything new in life, you guys, this is the same thing. And you had the bravery to learn soccer, to swim, to learn to run, to learn to walk, to, learn algebra in school. You had the bravery to do all of that. You can have the bravery to learn to give to yourself. And then when you do give to yourself, you will begin to attract others being able to give to you. Either the people around you's behavior will shift because they'll change with you, or people will fall away and you will bring in new people and have a different sort of relationship with them, healthier relationships, So I'm very, very observant now of red flags of codependency. So, we really need to watch our energy patterns. What kind of energy patterns do we have with people? So when somebody wants to spend a lot of time with me right off the bat, when I first meet them, I feel like they're wanting to leech onto my energy, especially because I'm a healer. A lot of people are drawn to me. They think that they are attracted to me, but they're really attracted to my light and not less necessarily to me for mate qualities or or, sexually or whatever. That happens to me a lot. And so I have to be very cautious of that. And more so, I'm very cautious of whom I want to share my energy with or give energy to. Whereas before, I would have wanted attention from anyone and anything, and I wouldn't have seen red flags. I would see the potential in people and not the actual way that they are. How are they showing up now, not their potential of what they could be. Because of being a healer, I can see people's potential very easily because I help people to achieve their potential, right? Help guide them to their ultimate life and potential and to their best versions of themselves. You know what I mean? But I, in my personal life, would kind of always see that in people. And I've had to learn to teach myself to see the red flags and to see their true self, what they're showing up in the moment. And not, I was used to always wanting to change my environment, change the people around me, make them happy. Get them to be able to give me what I needed that I wasn't getting, and so I think I got kind of addicted to doing that with people. And it became a good trait for what I do for a living, as long as I assist and don't do the work for them. But even in my clients, when I was younger, I would do the work for them sometimes. And you can't live people's lives for them, and their life is none of your business. And you got to let them, they're not going to grow if you don't let them live their own life and have their own identity. And you're just trying to control them all the time because that makes you feel safe and makes you feel like you're going to get it. Even though I'm an empath, that's kind of narcissistic too. That's what I'm saying. Like everybody has a bit of narcissist in them, so I had to learn to let people fall down. You have to learn to let your kid fall down when they're learning to walk. You got to learn to let people fall down in life. You got to learn to let them have their own lessons and step back and figure it out for themselves. As your teenager is growing into an adult, that is the hardest thing to do, but you have to. Otherwise, they'll never learn to stand on their own in the world. I have a couple of people in my family that I know that are like that. They can't stand on their own. They're constantly using people and needing from people because they were so codependent and so controlled that they don't know how to be in the world without taking from other people. And of course, there's all this give and take, give and take, give and take. But I mean, they have to mooch energy or mooch, ideas or mooch assets off of people instead of creating things on their own. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's somebody who doesn't believe in themselves and they don't have the wherewithal to stand up on their own. So you must let your children learn to, you have to let them make mistakes. You have to let them get dirty, and you have to let yourself too. Some people are so afraid of making mistakes. The most successful people are those people who aren't afraid. They're brave. They're not afraid to make a mistake, and they understand that mistakes are a part of life and they're a part of the road to success. I always say they're the stepping stones to success. So if you know that you're in a codependent relationship, if you don't know who you are without a person. Examine that. Then you know that you're codependent. If you're trying to get someone's approval all the time, get validated outside of yourself, you're codependent. If you are trying to save someone, you are codependent. So observe yourself. Begin to observe yourself and learn to become independent. Independent. You know, I'm a very independent person and I always have been, but I also was codependent. So you have to even become what's called interdependent. So I had to learn to give myself, meet my own emotional needs. And that means you need to learn to reassure yourself, comfort yourself. You know, that type of thing. Coach yourself, talk yourself up, praise yourself, you know, believe in yourself, that you don't need it coming from outside of you whatsoever. You know, and that is really, really an important part of ascending, you know, maturing and growing and stepping up in consciousness, is learning to love yourself and be in your power. And you can't be in your power if you are dependent on someone else, or you're allowing someone to be dependent on you. So save yourself, learn to save yourself, show up for yourself, support yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So when you go through this undoing, that's the dark night of the soul, is when you learn to face yourself, love yourself, even the things that you think are unattractive or ugly about yourself, learning to love yourself despite, learning to shift those things. How can I be the best me? How can I be healthier, behave healthier? You know? So check yourself. That's what interdependence means. You're able to give to yourself. You're able to fill up an overflow. You're able to take care of yourself on every level. And then you can have teamwork. When you live in a house, teamwork. Okay, these are your responsibilities. These are your responsibilities. These are your responsibilities. But you still know how to do those things. And everybody does their part so that the whole can benefit, right? That's teamwork. That's community. And we can also support each other when we're down, but we can't need the same person all the time, doing the same thing all the time. That is when we become codependent. You know, so I hope I gave you a lot to think about today, and I hope you can begin to examine your behavior and figure out how you can begin to have healthier behavior and support yourself. And maybe next episode, I will do a little mini healing and a little mini guidance thing with you to help you find out what are the needs that you need that you didn't get. So whatever you're being codependent about, that is like needs that you didn't get filled when you were younger and you're trying to get them out of people. Like, how can you give those to yourself? And what are those needs exactly? So between now and next week, I want you to reflect on that, okay? I want you to reflect on just observing yourself. Take some notes on observing yourself. And then I'll help you go deeper to connect with yourself, to find out more information so that you can figure out how to start really giving to yourself, really learning to fill up and overflow, really becoming interdependent with yourself. And then you can become interdependent with others instead of dependent. Okay? All right. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Have some fun. Feed your soul. It's so important. I am Donna Lakes. This is my Conscious Living Show. And I do work at Ascension Healing Arts Center in Southfield, Michigan. And I have a staff of gorgeous holistic practitioners and healers. So it's ascensionhealingartscenter.com. Follow Ascension Healing Arts Center on Instagram and Facebook. Follow Donna Lakes on YouTube and on TikTok. And I am also on Instagram and Facebook because we always have wonderful things to help you with your education and growth. Okay. And our number is 888-824-1970 if you want to find out about our workshops and our services and my healer program. Okay. Peace out. Love you guys. See you next time.